Welcome everyone to the finals of the Esports World Cup 2026. This is the first set between Magnus Carlsen and Magnus Lazavik, and right now Magnus is leading with a score of 2-1. He just needs a draw to win the first set, but Dennis has the white pieces and we are ready to go. Dennis opens the game here with pawn to d4, and Magnus responds back with knight f6, c4, e6, knight to c3. We have the Nimzo Indian, knight f3 and c5 played. Now Dennis can play g3 here. It's also possible he takes on c5. Magnus brings his knight out to c6, and Dennis can now bring his queen to c2, defending the knight, and that is exactly what he does. So the opening looks quite promising. White can now play bishop to g5, but first a3, stopping knight coming to b4, b6 played by Magnus to get his bishop to this diagonal, and e3. It's a very smart move because the bishop may not be best placed on g5. b4, bishop b2 maybe is where the bishop belongs. Bishop b7, b4, and the bishop drops back. White develops the bishop to b2, and now black can castle here is what Magnus does, and Dennis can put his bishop to e2. White's position is very promising because white has space. Also pressure down the d file can happen. He goes rook c8, and Dennis quickly castles. Queen comes up to c7, putting pressure down the c file, and rook fd1. I think these are exactly the kinds of positions that Magnus Lazavik likes to play. Queen b8 goes back, rook comes to c1, and what is Magnus going to do? Rook d8. Well, one plan in such positions is to go knight e4, putting pressure on f6. If you take, I take back with the queen. But h3 played by Dennis and h6 by Magnus. Both players trying to wait there. Queen to b3. Well, just yet pawn to d5 doesn't seem possible. But one plan here, he goes d6, is to put the queen on a8 on this long diagonal. He goes rook d2, queen does come to a8, and now rook d1 seems like a logical move to try. And Magnus's knight on c6, well, jumping to e5 makes no sense because I take, and then just put my bishop on f1, defending g2. So the knight on c6 isn't doing much, but look at this maneuver, knight b8, beautiful. Knight goes to e1, defending g2, knight bd7, and the rook comes forward to d4. Pawn to a6 and bishop f3. I love how Magnus has re-maneuvered his pieces. Takes, and the queen comes up to c6. Dennis is kind of struggling to find a plan with the c4 pawn becoming slightly weakened here. He goes knight d2, b5 played, takes. One black pawn does stop two white pawns here. Knight to f3, and now e5 is a very powerful move perhaps. But Magnus goes knight to b6. He's looking for the c4 square. Rook goes back, and now instead of knight c4, he puts his queen there, offering a trade. Takes. This makes the game very double-edged because white now has two passers that start moving on the queen side. Pawn to d5, rook c2, king f8, and g4 played. The rook comes to a8. Now knight d4 with the idea of bringing the knight to c6, rook c8. He goes king g2, the knight drops back, and we have f4. Dennis trying to expand on the king side, has his pieces nicely placed here, offering a trade of knights. Takes. f5 played. Now if you play e5, Then there is knight to b5, and the e5 pawn is a bit weak. So that's not a great idea. d5 is hanging. So rook goes back. b5 played. Already looking really good. e4 played. I mean, maybe there was also possible to play a4, a5, but takes e4. And Magnus now pushes his pawn to e5. Well, that's the best move here. Asking the knight, where do you want to go? And the knight jumps into c6. So the thing is, if you take here on d5, b5, I'll take on d5. So he goes d4. He keeps these pawns, but now a4 keeps these two pawns. And Magnus sacrifices an exchange. What a great decision. Take, a5. These pawns are strong, but white pawn is running. c3. And good or bad, he takes on c3. Because the point now is, if you take here, rook d7 is hanging. But Magnus has seen king e8 defending this and creating a counter pin here. a6 played. Now if you take here, then rook a1, and eventually you will get back the c3 pawn. So that's the reason why he takes the pawn and lets white preserve the exchange. So white is an exchange up, but black is the one who's pressing here, because look at these pieces. Pawn on e4 is weak. King comes up. Rook f1, rook a3, and the knight now enters into the game. Knight c5, check. And they're playing really fast. Check here, and this is a mistake. He should have played rook d2 or rook b2, but now check, king here, and he loses the e4 pawn, and Magnus doesn't care about the h pawn. Rook a6, d2 played, takes, king takes, and a check. Bishop c3. If you take here, I'm simply going to go king d4 and queen here. So Magnus Carlsen wins, and Denis Lazavik resigns the game. With this, Magnus wins the first set. What I absolutely was amazed is how Magnus sacrificed an exchange, then calmly played that game and won it. It was truly an incredible show by Magnus Carlsen, and he comes one step closer to winning the title at the Esports World Cup 2026.